Anthony Tony Bender Strollo was a prominent figure in the Mafia until his disappearance in 1962. Tony Bender had been working with the Genovese family, but he was known to switch sides when it benefited him. Could this be the reason he mysteriously vanished? Or was his disappearance part of a deeper plan? It has been over 60 years since Antony Strollo disappeared, and there are still no answers. In this video, we'll unravel the enigma of Strollo's sudden and mysterious disappearance. We'll also discuss some of the power dynamics leading up to his vanishing and some of the theories surrounding the mystery. First, let's take a look at who Antony Strollo was. Antony Strollo was born in New York City in 1899. He earned a reputation as a bootlegger and hitman during the Prohibition. In the 1920s, he started working for Giuseppe Masseria, a known bootlegger and enforcer, but after the Castellammarese War in 1931, Tony Bender left Giuseppe Masseria to work with his rival Salvatore Maranzano. Salvatore Maranzano died on September 10, 1931. After he passed, Tony Bender jumped ship and started working with the Luciano family. He became the capo for Charles Lucky Luciano, the family's boss at the time, and his underboss, Vito Genovese. The Luciano family was later renamed the Genovesi Family when Vito Genovese took over as boss in 1936. Tony Bender had a reputation as an underworld leader in Greenwich Village. He was financially involved with several cafes and nightclubs throughout the village. Allegedly, he also ran gambling, loan sharking, and bookmarking rackets. It is also believed that he had connections to New Jersey politicians and Teamsters from Local 560. The Genovese family, formerly known as the Luciano family, was formed in 1931. It was one of 5 families that emerged at the end of the Castellammarese War. This was a huge power struggle within the Mafia that left nearly 60 mobsters dead. The Genovese crime family was one of the most powerful during its era. When Tony Bender first joined the crime family, he took on the role of capo. But in 1936, when Vito Genovese took over as boss, Anthony became his underboss. This gave him more power in the family. However, in 1937, Vito Genovese was the subject of a murder indictment. He fled to Italy to avoid this and wished for Tony Bender to control things while he was away. Things didn't work out as planned. Instead, Anthony's rival Frank Costello took over the leadership role. This resulted in Vito Genovese and Antony Strollo losing their power within the family. Vito even returned to the US in 1946, but was only able to take the role of capo with Tony Bender as his assistant. This wasn't how Vito Genovese envisioned things. He wanted the power of the Genovese family back in his hands. In 1957, he came up with a plan to assassinate Frank Costello and wanted his trusted confidant Tony Bender to help. Although it was Vito's plan, Tony Bender did most of the dirty work. He learned Frank's schedule for the evening and arranged to have Vincent the Chin Gigante place the hit. The hit didn't go as planned. Frank Costello didn't die, but it wasn't a complete failure. Although Frank Costello survived, the plan scared him enough to step down from the role. With Frank out of the family, all the power went back to Vito Genovese, with Antony Strollo by his side. But things weren't smooth sailing for long. By 1959, there was an alleged plot to set Genovese up for drug trafficking. Most made men stay loyal to their boss and family, but Tony Bender wasn't like that. He wanted to do what was best for Antony Strollo. He allegedly attended a secret meeting with Carlos Gambino, head of the Gambino family. It is believed that they discussed a plot to set Vito Genovese up, and Antony Strollo played a role in taking him down. Antony Strollo left his house in Fort Lee, New Jersey on the evening of April 8, 1962, with an unknown associate. His wife Edna suggested that he take a topcoat. He told her that he wasn't going to be long. That's the last time he was seen alive. There are many theories surrounding this disappearance. A lot of people believe that he was murdered for switching sides. Is it possible that Vito Genovese figured out who was responsible for putting him behind bars? Or could it be another Mafia member that Tony Bender did wrong? No body or clues to a murder have ever been discovered. Yet, this isn't uncommon in the Mafia world. Mafia hitmen are experts at covering up their tracks. They're swift and skilled, making sure there isn't a shred of evidence that could link them back to the crime. With his reputation for switching sides, it's very possible this could have happened. But maybe Anthony knew people were hot on his trail. Could he have made himself disappear before anyone else could find him? Another possibility is that he could have made plans to flee and disappear. The unknown man he was driving with could have been hired by Tony Bender to help him get away. He didn't tell his family or friends in order to keep them safe. Some people even believe that he could have entered the witness protection program after setting up Vito Genovese. Maybe he knew that his enemies were going to take him out if he didn't leave first. Faking his death would be the perfect way to get them off his trail. Since Antony Strollo has never been found, there is only speculation on what could have happened to him. But there are a few theories that seem more logical than others. Tony Bender was familiar with the inner workings of the Mafia. He knew how these men thought and acted. When someone turned on a Mafia member, they would pay the ultimate price. Vito Genovese would not let Tony Bender get away scot-free. If Antony Strollo didn't fake his own death, then it's very likely that Vito Genovese was the mastermind behind the Vanishing. Joseph Valachi was a member of the Genovesi family. He made claims that Vito allegedly hinted at being responsible while they were in prison. Nothing has ever been proven to link Vito to his former underboss's disappearance officially. One possible theory is that Vito Genovese figured out that Antony Strollo was part of the plan to end his reign. It is believed that Vito was suspicious of him because Tony Bender kept trying to push him to turn him. Allegedly, he would tell Vito that if he turned himself in, the prison sentence would be shorter. It is also believed that Anthony Strollo convinced Joseph Valachi to return to New York when he tried to jump bail. This gives Mafia enthusiasts reason to believe that Vito and Joseph connected the dots and figured out Anthony's involvement. There is a second theory that points to Tony Bender allegedly cheating Vito Genovese out of profits from a drug organization. Vito may not have figured out that his underboss was part of the plan to get him behind bars, but he may have discovered his trusted confidant cheated him out of money. With either theory, it shows that Vito Genovese had reason not to trust Antony Strollo. Not only did he have the motive to want Tony Bender dead, but he also had the power to make it happen. Vito Genovese was still acting as a boss in prison, so he could order hits on rivals. The FBI did monitor a conversation between mafiosi Anthony Russo and Angelo Gyp DiCarlo. In this conversation, Mafiosi mentions a conversation he had with Ruggiero Boiardo and Sam Giancana. Allegedly, Ruggiero Boiardo was taking credit for killing Antony Strollo. Ruggiero was a powerful caporegime with the Genovesi family. It's possible that he could have made Tony Bender disappear, but there was never any mention in this monitored conversation about the order being placed by Vito Genovese. Nothing was ever discovered of this claim. There were also theories that he entered the witness protection program. This could have been because of the role he played in getting Vito Genovese sent to prison. It would also explain why he was willing to travel with an unknown person after doing a powerful crime boss dirty. Law enforcement faced many challenges with the investigation of Antony Strollo's disappearance. The biggest problem was that there were no witnesses or evidence. It was like he vanished into thin air. This is a familiar pattern with Mafia disappearances. The hitmen chosen for these contract kills are the best of the best. Not only can they make a person disappear, but they can make all traces of their disappearance vanish as well. The lack of clues wasn't the only challenge law enforcement faced during this investigation. There was speculation at the time that Tony Bender entered the witness protection program. If there is any truth to this speculation, authorities would not be able to track him down. People that enter the witness protection program have 24/7 protection when they are in a high-threat environment. Their whereabouts and new identity are kept confidential. Antony Strollo was married to a woman named Edna at the time of his disappearance who he had children with. According to a 1940 census, they had 2 daughters. Not a lot has been released to the public about Tony Bender's personal life and connections. However, it is believed that he was previously married to a woman named Rose in the early 1920s, but her whereabouts after marriage is unknown. It's also known that 2 of his cousins were part of different mobs. His cousin Lenny Strollo was with the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania mob, while his other cousin Dante Strollo was part of the Youngstown, Ohio family. When Antony Strollo was with the mob, he had a legitimate job as a real estate salesperson. It is believed that before entering the world of crime, he was working as a truck driver. He then got involved in the rackets in the 1920s. He also got involved with Giuseppe Masseria at the time and worked for him until he switched sides to Giuseppe's rival, Salvatore Maranzano. He left during the Castellammarese War when it was obvious that Joe Masserio was losing. Switching sides was something that Tony Bender earned a reputation for. Allegedly, many Mafia insiders knew that Anthony's loyalty was never set in stone. It came as no surprise when he joined the Genovese family. At the time of joining, when they were called the Luciano family, they were the most powerful family in organized crime. He stayed with this family until their power started to slip away. Antony Strollo was also known to have connections with the Teamsters Union. There was speculation that he pushed Anthony "Fat Tony" Provenzano to become the leader of the local 560 of the Teamsters. Fat Tony would go on to become the rival of former Teamsters president Jimmy Hoffa, who also mysteriously disappeared. By 1959, law authorities were hot on Antony Strollo's trail. Throughout the 1950s, he ran an underground enterprise in Greenwich Village, which consisted of loan sharking and bookmaking. But he became a key suspect in a murder investigation because he was one of the last people to see Anthony Carfano alive. There are many theories surrounding the murder of Anthony Carfano, and one of them is that Tony Bender killed him. Strollo and Carfano were at a dinner meeting along with model Janice Drake. During this meeting, Carfano was interrupted with a phone call. Only Anthony Carfano knows who was actually on the line, but many people believe that this phone call was from Frank Costello to warn him that he was in trouble. When Carfano came back to the meeting, he said that he had to leave. Janice Allen left with him because he was her ride home. 45 minutes later, Anthony Carfano and Janice Allen were found dead in a car in Jackson Heights, Queens. Since Tony Bender was the last person to be with them alive, he was a top suspect. Many people believe that the underboss arranged to have a hitman hidden in the back seat of Carfano's car. Antony Strollo was never convicted of the crime, but things weren't looking good for the Genovese family at this time. Around this time, law enforcement was starting to crack down on drug crimes involving the Genovese family. Vito Genovese and others in the family faced prison sentences, but Anthony Strollo, who was just as involved, didn't face any charges. This furthers the speculation that he could have played a role in taking down the Genovese family. Within the councils of the underworld, it was no secret that Bender's loyalty was always for sale to the highest bidder. He changed colors and sides like a chameleon. Carl Safakis, the Mafia Encyclopedia. Anthony Strollo's legacy was different from most infamous underbosses in the Mafia world. He wasn't the loyal mobster who would honor the head of the family. Instead, he would find a way to become part of the family that had the most power at the time. One of the most debated topics of Anthony Strollo's legacy surrounds the reason for his disappearance. In the Mafia world, he was viewed as a traitor. Some people believe that the Genovese family took him out for this very reason. Others believe that he faked his death to get away after setting Vito Genovese up. There are many different theories of what happened to Anthony Strollo, but they all point back to how he turned his back on the people he was working with. Even though Tony Bender wasn't a loyal mobster, the Genovese family still had good reason to work with him. Anthony was known for his skills at making money and bending operations in his favor to get what he wanted. The Genovese family could profit by having him on their side. While little is known about how Tony Bender's disappearance affected the Genovese family, we can only speculate that it was an eye-opener on who they could trust. On April 8, 1962, Anthony Strollo left his New Jersey home and was never seen again. Before he left, he allegedly told his wife that he would only be gone for a few minutes. But over 60 years later, where he went that night is still a mystery. His disappearance hasn't been forgotten. To this day, Mafia enthusiasts are still wrapped up in the mystery. Many people strongly believe that the Genovese family is responsible for his disappearance. Some Mafia members have even tried to take credit for placing the hit, but no evidence has ever connected anyone to the crime. There is also strong speculation that Anthony Strollo may have entered the Witness Protection Program. If the theories are true that he helped set up Vito Genovese for drug crimes, then it's possible that he could have entered the program for his own safety. The truth about Anthony Strollo's disappearance may never come to light. What do you think happened to this underboss that had a reputation for switching sides? Let us know your theories in the comments below. Thank you for sticking around to hear the entire story. We hope you enjoyed today's video on the enigma of Anthony Strollo's disappearance. If you want to see more videos like this, hit like and subscribe. Stay tuned for our next video.